Alright, so moving on to the next segment. I'll be sharing my fight summary on the fight that took place last night in the sport of boxing between Vasiliy Lomachenko and George Kambosos Jr. So we saw last night in the sport of boxing, Vasiliy Lomachenko defeated George Kambosos Jr. by knockout in the 11th round to become the new IBF world champion in the sport of boxing. So I'll be sharing my fight summary on this fight that took place in the lightweight division. To me, last night, Vasiliy Lomachenko still proved that age is just a number, and he's not going anywhere, especially in the lightweight division. Vasiliy Lomachenko is not going anywhere, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, because last night, his performance against George Kambosos was a picture-perfect shutout. He dominated basically from, I give round one to George Kambosos, but after that, Vasiliy Lomachenko, it was his world. And he proved that he's still one of the best fighters at the 135-pound division. He displayed good footwork last night, showed he could still fight in different angles to frustrate fighters in the boxing ring, showed patience in that fight, and showed that no mas Vasiliy Lomachenko is still around, because he landed that perfect body shot in the 11th round to George Kambosos right on the money. And George Kambosos got dropped. He stood back up, and then Vasiliy Lomachenko went back to work on the body of George Kambosos Jr., which forced George Kambosos to take another knee, dropping him for the second time in the fight. George Kambosos' father throwing in the white towel, making George Kambosos quit on the canvas for Vasiliy Lomachenko to become the new IBF world champion in the sport of boxing. A great masterclass performance by Vasiliy Lomachenko. I do believe that he still has a lot to prove in this division, but hats off to him winning this fight and becoming the new IBF world champion in this division. And something I wanted to touch up on, I just felt like that this fight with George Kambosos, something that George Kambosos failed to do during this fight, he did not adjust during this fight. Now, obviously, we all knew the blueprint, and I said it on the Combat Series last week for my fight prediction, that the key to stopping Vasiliy Lomachenko, slowing down his offense, is body shots. We all know that. Teofimo Lopez touched up on his body. Devin Haney touched up on his body. And even his running mate, Alexander Usyk, another Ukrainian that likes to train with Vasiliy Lomachenko, he doesn't respond well to body shots either. So we all knew that. But George Kambosos kept targeting the body several times in this fight. Yeah, you could do that, but also make adjustments. And I feel like that's the problem with George Kambosos in big-time fights, on the big-time stage, on the big-time platforms. You remove that Teofimo Lopez victory, George Kambosos, to me, is like a B minus, as I get stuck in my tongue, a B minus, nearly a C plus fighter, because you have to make adjustments in order to win these big-time fights. And something that I didn't see during this fight, when all he knew was the body, and that costed him, with him getting touched up in the eye and him not responding well to Vasiliy Lomachenko's power shots. I just feel like that George Kambosos did not adjust well during this fight. And I think that's what cost him in the later rounds of this championship fight. But this goes down as Vasiliy Lomachenko's first stoppage win since 2021, when he knocked out Nakatani in the summer 2021 after suffering his second career loss to Teofimo Lopez. Something that stands out to me, though, Vasiliy Lomachenko, that power that he has not gone anywhere. And that's somebody that has climbed up divisions. He's not a natural 135-pound fighter. The man really should be fighting at 130, if you want my honest opinion, but he shows grit and determination every single time. But these stats last night, he landed a total of 105 power shots on George Kambosos during that fight. That is huge for a boxing fight. So the fact that he did that shows that he still has power, and he stopped George Kambosos, something that Teofimo couldn't do or Devin Haney couldn't do twice. That's huge. So, hey, again, Vasiliy Lomachenko had one hell of a performance last night. I'm not going to take that away from him. So, what's next for Vasiliy Lomachenko? So, once again, Vasiliy Lomachenko finds himself as a world champion at the 135-pound division. He holds the IBF world title now. Now, I do believe that he still has the quest to become an undisputed champion at this division. And I think Bob Arum will try to help him get to that goal by trying to get him championship fights and fighting other fighters such as Gervonta Davis or Shakur Stevenson. Gervonta Davis has the WBA world title. Shakur has the WBC world title. I think he's going to try to get him one of those fights, but I think possibly if Emmanuel Navarrete wins that fight next weekend for the vacant WBO world title at this division, since Vasiliy Lomachenko and Emmanuel Navarrete are both with Top Rank, I think that's going to be an easy unification fight that Bob Arum makes next. So I think that could be next for Vasiliy Lomachenko. Shakur Stevenson has one deal left on his Top Rank deal, so I don't think he'll be re-signing with them. But I think the best fight to make is Vasiliy Lomachenko versus Gervonta Davis in this division, other than Gervonta Davis versus Shakur Stevenson, because that's a fight that we should have got years ago. Vasiliy Lomachenko still shows that he has the grit, the determination. Gervonta Davis is a box office attraction. That would not be a boring fight. Both of these fighters like to be physical in the ring. That'd be a fight that both fighters come forward to try to outbox each other. That would be a box office attraction fight for a unification fight between Vasiliy Lomachenko and Gervonta Davis. But in reality, boxing is a business, and politics are in the way of that with these different promoters. So, like I just said, with Shakur most likely leaving Top Rank after his next fight in July, and Gervonta Davis with PBC and Al Heyman, if Emmanuel Navarrete wins the WBO world title, I think that's going to be the fight that gets made a unification fight with Top Rank later on this year between Vasiliy Lomachenko and Emmanuel Navarrete. But what's next for George Kambosos? Now, to me personally, I think George Kambosos at this point has no choice but to move down to 130 if he still decides to box in the sport of boxing, because if you remove his huge upset victory against Teofimo Lopez that helped him become a unified champion at the 135-pound division, he has arguably lost every fight since then, because he lost to Devin Haney twice in 2022. His return fight last summer when he fought Maxie Hughes, I personally said he lost that fight, and the judges gifted him that victory. And then he just lost against Vasiliy Lomachenko. He's been outboxed in his last 4 fights at the 135-pound division. And I think after this loss, he's not going to be in a position to get himself back in line for a world title opportunity to fight for any of the 4 belts at the 135-pound division. And I just don't see him defeating top guys like Gervonta Davis, Shakur Stevenson, William Cepeda, Frank the Ghost Martin, Keyshawn Davis. I just don't see him beating those guys at the 135-pound division. And I think if he stays at this division, he's just going to become a damn gatekeeper. Who the hell wants to do that at a young age? George Kambosos isn't nearly 40 years old yet. So I think if he wants to still compete for titles and have success, I think his best bet is to move down to 130, a division where he could be a playmaker in that division. I mean, that's a division that has a lot of talent, but he has a better chance of competing for titles in that division and fighting the best of the best in that division than at 135. I just feel like he has no choice but to move to do that. And I think that would just be best for business for George Kambosos. It's unfortunate, but a guy that's been shut out twice, fighting in Melbourne, Australia, selling out in his home country, losing in dominating fashion to Devin Haney twice, and now Vasiliy Lomachenko. He's just not in position to be a playmaker now at the 135-pound division. I think if he stays, he's going to be a gatekeeper. But that's my fight summary on this weekend's fight, or this last night's fight between Vasiliy Lomachenko and George Kambosos Jr.